Hey there, my name is Megan Clanahan. I am the co-owner of Houston Moms, and every month we bring you videos from UTMB Health with valuable information that you can apply to your real life. And it's with our sorrow today that we are bringing you another video that is grief and trauma related. But we've heard from so many of you that you're not sure how to talk to your children about the tragedies on July 4th and then thinking ahead to hurricane season and how can we help our children help ourselves during this time. So, of course, we lean on UTMB Health. We have Dr. Dodd and Dr. Kirk with us today. They are both UTMB Health practitioners, child psychologists in the UTMB world. You guys have met Dr. G before. We love her. They work in like a tandem team. So we are so excited to have them, and we know we're going to have a great conversation today. So, Dr. Dodd, I'm going to throw it to you first. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, I'm a child psychologist. I've been with UTMB for the past 5 years. I was at Texas Children's Hospital before that. Um, my work is broadly helping children and family deal with difficult emotional and behavioral problems, and that includes recovering from traumatic events and loss.
Perfect. And your partner down there, Dr. Kirk, a little bit about you?
Yes, thanks so much for having us, Megan.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Dodd and I have been working together for many, many years. We both started out at Texas Children's, completed a fellowship in childhood trauma and grief there, have worked with many families after mass disasters, and I really specialize in trauma and grief work, along with treating disruptive behavior problems in youth and families. Currently at UTMB, been there for about 4 years.
Perfect. And from what I understand, you both are Texans. You're familiar kind of with the Texan culture and how that it kind of has different implications than it does maybe around our nation. I mean, Texas is like a very specific spot that unfortunately for us, and especially being here in Houston and the Bay Area, um, we're not unaccustomed to natural disasters. So given what happened on July 4th, um, what are some effective ways that mothers can talk to their children about that disaster? How do we bring it up? Dr. Kirk, I'm going to throw that down to you to
Sure.
kick us off.
Sure, happy to kick us off. We're going to be talking about kids and families in kind of two different groups today. So, one group would be the families that were down there and directly affected by the flooding. So, maybe they lost a child, they lost a loved one, maybe they were a part of the flooding and somehow survived. So, those conversations are going to look a bit different than
Mhm.
the bulk of the state, which is many of us who were touched by it, affected by it, but maybe don't know anyone who died, and we ourselves weren't traumatized there.
Yeah.
So I'll take, the most common situation is going to be those of us who were touched by it, maybe knew people who were down there but survived and are okay, um, and just feel for, our fellow Texans.
Yeah.
So in that situation, my advice would be, certainly don't create a problem if there isn't one. If you have young kids and they're not aware that this is happening, there's no need for you to talk with them about it.
Mhm.
And I would also, this is similar advice to when we talked last year after Hurricane Beryl, you want to minimize their access to media. They don't need to be sitting in front of the TV all day long, consuming that. You want to monitor their social media. They don't need to see all the pictures of the flooding and the devastation. So if there isn't a concern for them about what happened, you don't need to address it at all. Um,
Yeah.
but if you have older teens or people in your home who are very aware of what happened and maybe they had a friend or family member down there, you certainly want to take the time to address it with them. So taking them to a private, quiet space, hearing a little bit about how they've been feeling about the event, and kind of letting them guide the conversation with their questions. As adults, we really tend to overshare, and sometimes our anxiety can kind of get in the way, and we kind of put that
Yeah.
on them. So I always say, just give them the bare bones of what they need to know and what's developmentally appropriate for their age. Um,
Mhm.
and then see what questions they have and how they're feeling about it and answer those.
I think it's so important to take those cues from them.
Mhm.
You know, just like for point of reference, my son was at camp when
Mhm.
everything happened. But he was in Columbus, so he wasn't
Okay, good.
super close, but he was away from me. And I did like a whole freak out situation.
Mhm.
And I wanted to go pick him up immediately and, just get him. And then I found out the next morning they didn't even talk. They didn't tell the
Yeah.
kids what was going on. And I think that was 100% for the best. And I think at that time they didn't even know how bad it was at that point. But had I showed up there, my hot mess self, like crying, he would have been like, "What is actually wrong with you?"
Mhm.
And so I think that's where moms have to like take a minute and, like we need to process it outside of ourselves. So that's just
Sure.
like a personal thing. But um so let's say, we have kids that just feel really unsafe, Dr. Dodd, after, this happens and, they're hearing snippets. I mean, kids talk, they're, not totally immune to YouTube videos and all of that. Um,
Mhm.
what is what is your best advice for making them feel that safety? Again, if everything feels a little uncertain.
Yeah, so, one of the things that parents can do is do more listening than they are speaking.
Mhm.
So, um, it's really easy to want to jump in and lecture or educate. Um, but in doing that, you can shut them down and make them not want to share what they're dealing with you.
Yeah.
Or you can miss the point of what it is that they're communicating. So, are they feeling fearful or unsafe? Are they concerned about a friend or a family member? Do they have just specific questions about the facts of the matter, as Dr. Kirk said, what actually happened?
Mhm.
So, what you're wanting to do, and we're going to probably repeat this catchphrase over and over, is to just follow their lead. Um, so take your time to listen what it is that they're saying. And what you want to look for is are they coming away with uncertainties about the situation, in which case it's appropriate to provide them with some hope, some optimism, to reassure them that they're safe? Um, or are they having fears that are unwarranted, like this might happen again, this is going to certain turns of events are going to get worse or things of that nature. And so, in those kinds of situations where it's really unrealistic what they're thinking, it's okay to provide them a little bit more information to say, no, that's not actually what happened, or that's not how things are going to be, and to really get in there. But you kind of want to do as light of a touch as you need to do to kind of set things back on course and following their lead. Mhm.
Well, and I think that seems reassuring, just because, we don't need to overwhelm them. And I'm not even sure what I want to say or can say. I don't know. I feel like a faucet at sometimes where I'm just like, bro. Um, which speaking of, I think one thing that we touched on before we got on camera was how far reaching this event was, the tentacles, if you
Yeah.
will. And I think that's why moms are struggling, or having a lot of feelings right now. It's why kids are, because we all kind of know somebody in the whole country who knew somebody in the whole country, or because we're Texas, we send our kids to overnight camp, and it's a really great experiences for our kids. And so we're coming up on the end of summer camp season. Parents are going to be planning for next summer camp season. Dr. Kirk, what would you tell moms who are kind of feeling that fear of sending them away? And what if? Like, I guess all the what ifs that fly
Yeah.
in your
Mhm.
face.
Sure, sure. That's a great question. So, first off, many of the big camps are located in County, in the Hunt area. And we don't know if those are going to be open next summer because of how devastating the flooding was in the natural disaster. So those families, I'd say, I would try to not worry about that yet. Let's see what happens down there,
Yeah.
how the area even recovers. Now, if you go to many, any of the other camps across the state that were not affected that drastically or at all by natural disasters, I see no reason to not send your child. Now, if I were a parent sending my kid to camp, I would probably, and I bet camps are going to do this preemptively, but I probably would call them and say, okay, I would look and see if they're in a floodplain.
Yeah.
Probably call them and say, what's your emergency procedure?
Oh,
And if it logically is safe, which the vast majority is going to be, these camps are unique in that they're right on the Guadalupe River in a really severe floodplain. If your camp is not, then there's no reason to not send your child.
yeah.
Um, so
Well, and I think those questions and giving permission giving to the moms that you're not crazy if you call the camps and want to know
no.
what is actually your plan. And I will say I did call my kids' camp at
Mhm.
5 o'clock that Friday. They had put up a short post on social that everything was fine and they're having a little bit of rain, but having fun. We'll see you pick up for tomorrow. And I was
Mhm.
like, no, no, no. I actually need to talk to a human and
Mhm.
I need to know that everything is
Yeah,
good and fine. And so that's permission giving, I think, for parents that
yeah,
it's okay to to question these things. And maybe send like a little extra note in their trunk. But also, I would assume, Dr. Dodd, you don't want to project all of that
yeah.
anxiety onto your children because as much as we want to cling, we can't cling, right?
Yes, you're right ahead of where I was thinking. I think there's adult conversation and there's kid conversation, and then depending on the maturity of your teenagers is somewhere in between. But you want to keep those adult conversations in between the details of those for younger children in between you and the other, the adults at the camp.
Mm,
And with the kids, you can kind of project that, model that assurance. Hey, I talked with them. It's going to be just fine. They got a great plan to take care of you and keep you having fun and safe all summer long or all week long.
yeah.
And so you can do a more age appropriate version of that for older kids. But the more you kind of uh, reveal all of your sort of double checking and safety checking, you can kind of communicate some uncertainty about the event versus do your homework about it and then communicate that certainty to your kids.
Oh, perfect. Because, I think of them and I'm just like, oh gosh, I don't know. I would probably hug them like a minute too long and they're teenagers and they don't love that anyway. But I think of, the mamas sending their babies and, we sent our son when he was 8. I mean, he was just a little thing. But it's important that they know that they are still going to have a great week. So let's say there's a kiddo who's really kind of feeling some anxiety around this, like whether it's survivor's guilt or fear, sadness, maybe going into other things. Dr. Kirk, what is your kind of best advice? What should we be on the lookout for? When does it get, where we should maybe seek like some professional help?
Hmm. Yeah. So, you know, again, it's kind of two different groups of kiddos. If they were at the camp or in Hunt, or the area at the time, like those kids are going to look a lot different from,
Mhm.
our kids up over here in Houston who were safe and maybe heard about it and it made them feel sad or scared.
Yeah.
So I'll talk first about, kids who weren't as directly affected. You're likely not going to see any changes for them. It would be very rare to. There's some normal sadness, just
Mhm.
grieving for those families, even if we don't know them directly. A lot of us have been to Hunt. We're familiar with the area. We all know many of us know someone who's been touched more directly by this. You're likely for our kiddos over here who weren't down there, didn't lose a loved one, you're likely not going to see much. Um, you might see, some normal sadness, some normal anxiety, but that should really dissipate within, days of hearing about this.
Mhm.
Now, kids who were down there and survived, or had a family member who died, we might expect some symptoms of acute stress, for about 1 month after that event happened. And that would be typical, that would be expected. Um, and we won't really know if those kids and families will need individual treatment for those symptoms until it's been a few months out from the
Okay.
event. Most people recover.
That's really hopeful because I
Hmm.
think of those kiddos, and I have friends who came back with kids who were at Camp La Junta, like the boys' camp right there, and they were very, very close to all of that. But I think it is hopeful that most of them will go on to be okay. And
Absolutely.
um, so kind of in that same vein, Dr. Dodd, emotional resilience, is there such a thing in building that for our kids? I mean, we live in kind of a disaster prone area. And
Yes,
we know that we're going to have this isn't the last natural disaster that Houston's going to go
that's
through,
right.
sadly. So is there something that we can instill in our children to help them be more emotionally resilient? Is that a thing?
Yes, absolutely. So I want to separate that from what happens after a traumatic event, a disaster. In the days and weeks after the event, what you're doing is getting your life back together if you are directly impacted, grieving, moving on, building a new sense of normalcy. And that's part of the recovery process. But resilience actually starts before the event happens, and continues long after. And what parents can do is a subset of promoting a healthy lifestyle and healthy routines. And so we have a saying, healthy routine, healthy lifestyle, healthy recovery. And so abnormal lifestyle, abnormal routines, abnormal health, abnormal recovery after stressful events. And so what that comes from is that kids who are doing well before the event, they're going to school, they're getting the grades that they're capable of, they have friendships, they're involved in after school activities, they have healthy relationships in their home. They're the ones that tend to be resilient in response to even some of the worst traumatic events, versus the kids who are struggling before. They might have had academic problems. They might not be well liked at school, be bullied, have a lot of conflict in their homes, a lot of other prior issues, maybe even some mental health problems that they were dealing with. Those are the ones that are most likely to struggle in the wake of an event like this. And so, what parents can do to promote that is, first of all, if your kid has bona fide mental health issues, serious emotional or behavioral problems, get them that treatment.
Mm,
And sometimes, unfortunately, we wait and are hopeful that kids are going to recover on their own. And then an event like this affects them and might exacerbate things. And so that's a wake-up call to get them the treatment that they needed even before the event.
Yeah.
And
love
then
it.
beyond that, what parents can do is have not too high expectations, but expectations for your child that challenge them in terms of academics, social life, extracurriculars, and hold them to account for those things so that they're challenged. What you're shooting for is wanting them to be comfortable being uncomfortable in terms of learning and
Mm,
trying new things. And so when a stressful thing comes on in their life that was unexpected, that's not the first time they're dealing with something hard.
okay. That is so funny you should say that because I just wrote a blog post, and we'll put that in the links below because I do think it goes along with this. But um, how it's a natural inclination for parents to want to bubble wrap the heck out of our kids, and we don't want them to hurt because it's hard to see them walk through that. And I've alluded to it before. There's a video we watched, and it's like we know the kids are going to hit that brick wall. We see it coming. We know it's going to happen, and we have to let them hit it, and smack, and then we have to be their safe place. And so I think that, kind of captures what you're saying. I mean, and then ultimately we are their safe place,
Yes.
and we are. What I'm hearing from both of you is their place that they can share, and we
Yeah.
listen.
And
Yes.
can I just make one more point about resiliency? Because when you
Sure.
talk about bubble wrapping, then that tendency to overprotect them, that brings up a really important point about resiliency. Parents can do a little, like I said, to encourage and promote resiliency, but all kids have a natural inborn resiliency. They're very resilient.
Mm,
Um, And so when we think about traumatic and stressful events is like a bone break. As long as we set the bone and allow adequate rest and nutrition, it's going to heal on its own. We don't expect anything else. Sometimes there's complications.
Mm.
And so it's the same thing for kids in families. If they have the proper environment to recover and the proper support, they're going to do it on their own and they're going to recover naturally. Now, sometimes it doesn't always go that way, and that's where folks like Dr. Kirk and I come in.
Mm.
Yeah.
But parents can interrupt that process by trying too hard to promote it. So just like there's not much we can do to help a bone heal. There's not too much you can do to speed up the process of dealing with something really stressful for your kids. And one of the natural tendencies is to try to prevent them from experiencing any more pain than they need to. And that
Yeah.
might solve the problem in the short term, provide some short-term relief, but it really can result in long-term suffering.
Oh, such a solid point. Um, Dr. Kirk, I know we're kind of running to the end of our time. Is there anything additionally you wanted to share in regards to this?
Sure. Yeah. So in the Houston area, for those kids and families who were pretty directly affected by this or are just feeling like they need, some help and support above and beyond what they have now, some things just to keep in mind, especially for the families who've lost a direct loved one. Um, Bo's Place is a really wonderful place to go. It's a children's bereavement center. They offer support groups there. When you're ready, the families in this direct aftermath right now, our advice is, just go home, unpack, attend your loved one's funeral, be with friends and close friends and families at home, enjoy the food brought over, enjoy the conversations and memories about your loved one. So they're kind of in a different camp, they're a different group. They're healing more naturally and in a slower way.
Yeah.
For those of us less affected, if you're feeling like you need more support or, more, you're grappling with this as a parent and not sure how to handle it, there are several things that can help. So, Bo's Place for those directly affected by the grief,
Okay.
when they're ready, that will be, I would say, 3 months from now, they might be ready for some support
Okay.
in grief work at Bo's Place. Right now, so we both work on TChat through the Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium and offer free brief therapy for kids in public schools across the state. So those services are available for kids right now, and it's ongoing through the summer and school year. Um, and then, sometimes kids who've had behavioral difficulties and mental health difficulties prior to this event and then were directly affected, like Dr. Dodd said, that can exacerbate some pre-existing issues. So, if your child is struggling with, something like suicidality or self-harm, that would be the time to bring them in or call 988, which is the crisis lifeline for the US.
Okay.
I think I covered the main. There's also the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, and we
Okay.
can send you the handout on how to talk to kids after a natural disaster that they produced, which might be
That's
helpful.
Yeah, that's perfect. So we can drop all those links below with all that information. I know we've talked about Bo's Place before, and which sounds like
Great.
an incredible resource. And but I'm so glad there's other things to get out there. And I will tell you guys, after talking to y'all, I mean, my mama's heart has been heavy. And
Mm.
but what I hear and it's just like this piece that like our kids, like even though we say it and it sounds cliche, they really are resilient. Um, the kids are gonna be okay. And so just a word like to the moms, like maybe go for a walk. Um, and I know I had to go talk to my counselor because it was more fair to dump there than dump here. And so whatever you moms need to do to stay emotionally healthy for your family so that you can create the healthy space for them to be emotionally resilient, to Dr. Dodd's point. Super important. Um,
Absolutely.
Thank y'all so much for being here and continuing to provide such great resources to the Houston area. I very much appreciate it. Houston Moms will be back next month with another video from UTMB Health, and hopefully we won't be talking about grief or tragedies and whatnot, and will be something different. But until then, I hope y'all stay healthy, safe, and happy rest of the summer to y'all. Have a good one. All right.